Okay, we're coming back to providing an overview of the book, which is called The Psychology of Quality of Life, Hedonic Well-Being, Life Satisfaction, and Eudaimonia. Um, this is a book that's published by Springer. I'm the author of the book. My name is Joseph Sergi, and I'm a professor at Virginia Tech. Um, the book is divided in terms of different parts, and we talk about the philosophical foundations, definitions, and measures of these constructs. Constructs being um, hedonic well-being and life satisfaction and eudaimonia. We talked about the consequences of happiness, and there's a whole bunch of again, studies that have looked at that. Same thing with objective reality and its effect on happiness. We talked about that extensively. And again, we talked about subjective reality and its effects on happiness, again, extensively. And the last part of the, well, not the last, but the, the part of the book that is before last, which is life domains and their effects on happiness. And again, we talked about you know that extensively. Now what we're doing is we're focusing on population segments and happiness. And in that context, I'm going to show you the slides. There's so many quality of life studies that have focused on different population segments and try to ascertain the those factors related to happiness in the context of those population segments, such as children, youth, college students, elderly, women, disabled, drug addicts, teachers, immigrants, caregivers, and the like. And of course, this is not even an exhaustive list. So what we're going to do now in terms of this module, we'll focus on children, youth, and college students. So that module will focus on, again, happiness and children, youth, and college students. And we will answer the those questions related: what is happiness for children, youth, and college students? And we'll try and explain happiness, among children, youth, and college students, and also those factors affecting happiness of children, youth, and college students. So we'll start out with definitions. And as you can see from this slide, uh, the literature on children, youth, and college students is quite extensive. So what we're doing is we're dividing, we're breaking things up by stages by age development. So we'll look at studies looking at defining and conceptualizing and developing measures of children of preschool age, elementary school age, middle school age, adolescents, college students, and then indicators of children well-being in general. Well, let's start out with preschool. Preschool. Okay. When it comes to preschool, there is one particular measure of preschool age happiness of preschool age children, which is called the Early Development Instrument, EDI. The EDI has gained a great popularity in recent years. The instrument is conceived originally as a measure of school readiness. However, it is also used as a quality of life instrument, and school readiness reflects the child's ability to learn with a school setting and having the skill set and other personal characteristics that can facilitate successful learning. So the EDI involves a checklist completed by the kindergarten school teacher for target children. And the measure I'm looking here at a table that really captures the essence of the measure. So it is a composite index that has one, two, three, four, five different dimensions, yeah, based on those domains. And so those domains would be physical health and well-being, social competence, emotional maturity, language and cognitive development, and communication skills and general knowledge. In the context of something like the physical health domain, there are subdomains like physical readiness for school, physical independence. And when it comes to social competence, it would be things like gross and fine motor skills, overall social competence, responsibility and respect, approaches to learning, readiness to explore new things. The domain related to emotional maturity would be things would involve pro-social and helping behavior, anxious and fearful behavior, hyperactivity and inattention. When it comes to language and cognitive development, it would be basic literacy, interest in literacy and numeracy, advanced literacy, basic numeracy, and with respect to communication skills and general knowledge, again, we're looking here at communicates easily, effectively, participates in storytelling, articulates clearly, and shows adequate knowledge. And again, in relation to all of these subdomains, domains and subdomains, a whole bunch of specific uh, items or yeah, items that the kindergarten school teacher would complete. Uh, Again, directed to a specific child. Okay, well, let's look at other definitions and instruments related to quality of life of children of elementary school age. One particular uh, inventory, um, which is called the Child Quality of Life's Systemic Inventory. This particular measure has gained, again, some degree of popularity in the quality of life research literature. And I'm looking at a table and that captures much of uh, that captures a good description of this instrument, and it is described as follows. The measure includes 20 life domains: sleep, food, pain, health, clothes, physical appearance, bedroom, relations with grandparents, relations with mother, relations with father, relations with siblings, relations with friends, opinion of people around me have about me, school, school results, sports activities, extracurricular activities, autonomy, obedience to authority, and tolerance of frustration. Um, yeah, so all of these are, it's supposed to capture the child's physical, emotional, cognitive, social, and family functioning. Again, this measure seems to do well, and it's gaining a certain degree of popularity. Okay, let's move on to middle age school. Middle age, no, what am I saying? Middle age, middle school age. Sorry about that. Um, there is one particular measure, a composite measure that, again, is um, gained quite a bit of popularity in the literature, which is called the Multidimensional Students Life Satisfaction Scale. And this measure captures satisfaction in 5 key domains that are highly relevant to middle school years children. It is based on the theoretical premise that children's overall life satisfaction is based on positive and negative affect accrued in salient life domain, such as family life, friendship, school life, self, and the living environment. And I'm looking at a table that really captures the scale. And so I'm looking at family and examples of items that's supposed to be capturing the family satisfaction would be members of my family talk nicely to one another. My family gets along well together. How about friends? My friends are great. My friends are nice to me. I have a lot of fun with my friends. How about school? I like being in school. I look forward to going to school. School is interesting. How about self? I think I'm good looking. I am fun to be around. Most people like me. Living arrangement, no, living environment, I mean. I like where I live. I wish I lived in a different house. That's reverse coded. Um, my family's house is nice. Okay. So that gives you an idea of a good measure of quality of life of children of middle school age. How about adolescence? There are many subjective well-being constructs and measures focusing on adolescence. For example, one would be the Personal Well-Being Index, school children. That one it captures satisfaction in life domains such as standard of living, health, achieving, relationships, safety, community, and future, including school. Another popular quality of life instrument for adolescents is the personal growth measure. And this one, let me give you examples of the items that is included in the measure. I know how to change specific things that I want to change in my life. I have a good sense where I am headed in my life. I want to change something in my life. I initiate the transition process. I can choose the role I want to have in a group. I know what I need to do to get started towards reaching my goals, on and on. Okay, focusing on college students, we have a specific measure. We already talked about um, one particular measure related to college students in this section dealing with educational well-being. Is it educational well-being? Yeah. Um, there's another one that we need to talk about, which has, again, this one is by Michaelos and Orlando in 2006. This measure involved two indices, a global subjective well-being index and a domain satisfaction index. The subjective well-being index is composed of four variables: satisfaction with life as a whole, satisfaction with the overall quality of life, satisfaction with one's standard of living, and overall happiness. The domain satisfaction measure is composed of a series of satisfaction items capturing satisfaction rating in the following life domains: housing, family relations, friendships, recreation, financial security, self-esteem, instructors, course offerings, student services, library services, food services, fitness services, bookstore services, and academic preparation for employment. Okay, that's college students. When looking at indicators of children well-being, um, that applies across several stages of development. Um, there is one particular measure by Lipman, Moore, and McIntosh that looked at subjective indicators of children's well-being, and it's broken down by individual, relationship, and context. And in the context of the individual, there are essentially four major dimensions: physical health, development, and safety. The second one is cognitive development and education. The third dimension is psychological and emotional development. And the fourth one is social development and behavior. At the relationship level, we have five major dimensions: family, peers, school, and community, and the macro system. And then finally, we have the context. And in the context, we have, again, assessment related to the family, peers, school, community, and the macro system, too. Um, so, again, there's plenty of definitions, conceptualizations, and measures of happiness or quality of life for children, youth, and college students. That sort of gives you an idea of the diversity of the concepts and the measures related to this population segment. How about explaining happiness among children, youth, and college students? And in that context, we have three well-accepted theories. One is social development theory, the other one is attachment theory, and the third one is ecological theory. Okay, social development. Social development theory is based on Erikson's social development theory, and it asserts that maturation occurs in 8 distinct stages. Each stage presents a particular challenge that the individual has to overcome. The way this challenge is dealt with makes a huge impact on subjective well-being of the individual. Resolving particular challenges color the individual's personality and allows him or her to resolve the next set of challenges of the following changes. For example, toddlers, 1 to 3-year-old children, face the challenge of becoming autonomous. That is, the child makes an attempt to control his or her environment by depending less and less on his or her caretaker. Preschool children, 3 to 5 years of age, learn to cooperate with other children and adults in completing school and play activities. School-aged children, six years to adolescence, are faced with the challenge of demonstrating academic competence and mastering social skills. The major challenge in adolescence is identity formation, to know who they are and what they want to be. So again, facing those challenges makes a huge difference in uh, being able to um, contribute to subjective well-being for children. The second one is attachment theory, and attachment theory has gained again a great deal of popularity in the human development literature. Um, a body of research has shown that later emotional development and cognitive capability are strongly influenced by attachment between mother and infant in early development. Positive emotions experienced by infants are associated with resilience in later life. A caregiver's responsiveness to an infant's attachment behaviors influence the child's self-representation and beliefs about others, which in turn influence emotional regulation and behavior. It gives you an idea of what attachment theory is about. Finally, we have ecological theory, and this is a theory that is um, is mentioned in the quality of life literature by Bron Bronfenbrenner. Bronfenbrenner. I'm sorry, I'm not pronouncing it right. And it focuses on the interaction between the child and the environment. These interactions are analyzed in several hierarchical levels. At the lowest level, which is the microsystem, child environment interactions focus on one immediate setting, the family, for example, school, neighborhood. At the next level, the mesosystem, two or more microsystems interact. For example, analyzing the interface between child's interaction with the school and child interactions with the family reflects a specific mesosystem. At the next level, there is the exosystem, which is mostly macro. An exosystem contains setting where the child is not directly involved. However, the setting influences the child and his or her interactions with the environment. Examples of exosystem include parents' workplace and the parents' affiliations within the neighborhood, the government social services, and so forth. The microsystem, the mesosystem, and the ecosystem, no, I mean the exosystem, constitute the child's developmental context. To explain children's subjective well-being, the quality of life researchers take into account these three ecological sets of factors and study their influence interactively or simultaneously. Well, that's a mouthful on regarding ecological theories. I hope you get at least a feel for it. Um, Now we move to looking at some of the factors that affecting happiness of children, youth, and college students. And we're going to break things down in terms of situational factors, personality factors, psychographic factors, and social factors, and socioeconomic and sociocultural factors. So we're going to go back to situational factors. And so what the research that have looked into some of the predictors of things that influence happiness in these particular population segments, um, one concept is called youth stress, and it has something to do with functional stress. So eustress interacts with hope and self-efficacy to positively influence life satisfaction. Um, in the clinical psychology literature, stress is considered to have both positive and negative effects, functional versus dysfunctional. Eustress is considered to be stress that motivates the student to engage in action to reduce stress and attain aspirational goals. So again, there's evidence to suggest that eustress is positively related to life satisfaction in children, youth, and yeah, and I would assume also college students. Uh, Realize that there's a typo. It's not college studies, it's college students. Um, Social recognition. Social recognition is it's pretty obvious what it is. Social recognition is the extent to which the student or the child um, becomes recognized by teachers, by by his or her peers, by parents, by siblings, and the more the child becomes recognized, uh, for his or her abilities and other aspects, then uh, uh, that plays a significant role in subjective well-being. Social support, um, again, children who have uh, a great deal of social support are likely to experience um, high levels of subjective well-being. Hope intervention. This we included this factor because there's at least one study that looked at how do you instill hope in children so they would be able to achieve and have enough self-confidence and self-esteem to be able to function at a higher level and hope intervention types of programs seems to work in enhancing subjective well-being. Okay, looking at personality factors, we divide personality factors in terms of positive personality traits, and these include extroversion, self-esteem, sense of coherence, optimism, self-efficacy, social potency, dependability, interpersonal relatedness, identity firmness, dispositional gratitude, resilience, and character strength. Um, so there's a bunch of studies that have shown that these personality traits tend to contribute to subjective well-being. And that's pretty obvious. Extroversion, we know what extroversion is. Um, that has a lot to do with sociability. People like to be with other people, and they're so highly sociable. Self-esteem, well, we know what that is. Sense of coherence is that their identity is much more coherent rather than fuzzy. So when a person has a self-concept that is coherent, that they know who they are, then that really contributes to subjective well-being. Children who are optimistic also are likely to have high levels of subjective well-being. Self-efficacy in terms of competency, uh, then then okay. Excuse me for that interruption. Now I kind of lost where I'm at. I think we talked about some of the positive personality traits. We talked about extroversion, self-esteem, sense of coherence, optimism, self-efficacy, social potency. What is social potency? Well, social potency refers to novelty, diversity, divergent thinking, leadership, extroversion, and enterprise. Um, so this is a higher level construct. It's what you call a meta construct that focuses on all of these things, and the combination of these things are the things that have been shown to be associated with subjective well-being and life satisfaction. Okay, other positive personality traits include dependability, interpersonal relatedness, identity firmness. Identity firmness is the extent to which people have again, has a lot to, it's very similar to sense of coherence. So people have a firm identity, they know who they are. How about dispositional gratitude? Dispositional gratitude is they express gratitude in most situations. in most situations in relation to different uh, peers and parents and teachers and the like. Those children who are resilient, resilience is a positive personality trait that has been associated with subjective well-being. Character strength. Again, those children that score highly on things like appreciation of beauty, authenticity, bravery, creativity, curiosity, fairness, forgiveness, gratitude, hope, humor. Again, these are what you call character strength. And these are associated again with subjective well being. How about negative traits? Neuroticism. We all know what neuroticism is. Anxiety, paranoia, and negative emotions of all sorts. Suicide ideation and emotional disturbance. And again, these are psychopathological types of characteristics. Uh, so children that think in terms, think of suicide a lot. They don't want to live anymore, and as well as they're emotionally disturbed. Uh, then of course they score low on a variety of measures of subjective well-being. Um, Psychographic factors. Well, again, they're divided in terms of positive psychographics and negative psychographics, and the positive psychographics include religiosity, spiritual well-being, physical exercise, ecological responsible behavior. Those children that, for example, care about the environment and recycle and so forth. Free time management. Again, those children and youth that seem to do well in terms of managing their free time. And values. What are the values? Values like personal values in terms of sensitivity, good manners, love of life, creativity, work capacity, perseverance, character, and kindness. There are relationship values, values related to family, sympathy, world knowledge, solidarity, and tolerance. There are values related to capacities and knowledge, and like intelligence, practical skills, social skills, computer knowledge, um, and so forth. So these are the kinds of values that seem to be very much related to subjective well-being, in children and youth. Um, Negative psychographics include image popularity. Again, those youth who are hung up on how popular they are or should be. Again, this kind of psychographic is very much associated with low levels of subjective well-being, abnormal dieting, sexual risk-taking, and substance abuse. So these are pretty obvious. Okay, moving right along, social factors, and there's a body of evidence identifying a whole bunch of what you call positive social factors and negative social factors. And the positive social factors include social interest and participation in extracurricular activities, quality and quantity of interpersonal relationships, developmental assets, the positive social relationships, social bonding, owning meaningful social roles, intimate relationships formed in early adulthood, pro-social motivation and behavior, multiple close relationships, and family structure. In this context, the family structure is essentially the traditional family rather than a single parent family. Uh, so these are the positive social factors that contribute to subjective well-being. Negative social factors include parents' mental distress, living with other people besides one's parents, uh, parental mistrust and alienation, peer alienation and delinquency, lack of maternal care. Again, these seem to be pretty obvious. So we don't need to further define them. Last but not least, we have socioeconomic and sociocultural factors, and that is family affluence. And again, children that are raised in affluent family experience high levels of subjective well-being than those who live, on the average in families that are less affluent. Neighborhood resources, again, they live in a neighborhood that has uh, recreational sports facilities, for example. Again, that would be a resource. Express high levels of subjective well-being than those that do not have those resources. Neighborhoods characterized as low in environmental quality. If children uh, are uh, are raised in neighborhoods that uh, are low in environmental quality, as much of dilapidated buildings and graffiti and land pollution of all sorts and noise pollution and so forth, they are likely to express lower levels of subjective well-being. Effective acculturation strategies, and that's the last um, factor that we need to discuss, and that pertains this particular factor pertains to immigrants and how they adapt or what we call acculturate in the new environment. And some immigrants and their children do better than others, and depending on the strategies that they use. Um, so acculturation strategies that focus on education and social support um, result in children having higher levels of subjective well-being than those strategies that do not emphasize education and social support. And that's what this study uh, seemed to indicate. And this is the all the factors related to children's happiness, well, children, youth, and college students. Um, and therefore, we conclude that module as such.